It's that time once again. Engines on, let's go. Welcome back to another weekly episode of The Whole Truth. My name is Wes, and it's my job to bring you relevant Star Citizen news every week in a concise format. Let's do episode number 32. It's been a very busy week in the Star Citizen universe with the $47 million goal reached, the Xion Scout video, and sale, and our second episode of Around the Verse. We've got a lot to talk about. First up, we got a broadcast scheduling update from CIG with the new show Around the Verse and the demise of Wingman's Hangar. The team is changing up the schedule releases. From now on, you should look for 10 for the Chairman on Mondays at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Around the Verse on Thursdays at 9 a.m., and Fridays we'll usher in a new show called Inside CIG, which will only run on a tentative basis. When the team thinks they have enough info put together for a new episode of that show, we'll get a show, and it will be on Fridays. Inside CIG is going to take a look at the development process from the inside. Okay, moving on. We got a massive work-in-progress image drop for the Retaliator. The Retaliator is billed as a bomber, and it's quite large. Foundry 42 is currently working on the ship, and all of the pictures are in-engine shots. After seeing these, I'm a lot more excited about the Retaliator than I was before. I do currently have one of these with LTI, and I'm looking forward to being able to walk around inside it before too long. With all the back and forth arguing about the flight model and the control system in Star Citizen's DFM, a lot of misinformation has been spread. Chris Roberts decided to address this with a post on the site where he walks us through the physics model for Arena Commander. So let's discuss it. Chris makes the comparison to most space games, including his own, using a very simple simulation, whereas Star Citizen does not use a simple simulation. In Star Citizen, the physics are modeled after what would be needed on an actual spaceship, including correct application of the thrust at the places where the thrusters are attached to the hull of the ship. This is a massive difference than what we've seen before, and chances are you've never played a game that's done that. This also makes it possible for damage to be modeled accurately. If you take damage to a single thruster somewhere on your ship, it's going to affect the way your ship flies in a very specific way related to the damage on that thruster. It makes sense. This is also what gives the ships their own personality. Even the three ships currently in Arena Commander, the Aurora, the 300i, and the Hornet, all feel very different when you fly them. Taking damage to certain thruster areas really changes the feel of the flight in Arena Commander as well. Chris also reiterates how the ship's systems are simulated fully within the ship and its damage model. Every single function of the ship has a location and is plugged into the system using a series of pipes. These pipes connect all of these systems together. This system includes weapons, thrusters, power plants, heat sinks, radar systems, fuel tanks, batteries, targeting systems, CPUs, HUDs, and the IFCS. These all tie together using power, heat, fuel, and CPU pipes. If any of these things are damaged, you can see malfunctions relative to the damage. This is a lot more complex than it may sound. A lot of those systems depend on each other. For example, the targeting computer cannot function without power from the power plant, CPU cycles from the ship's computer, and positional info from the radar. If there's not enough CPU to go around your systems due to damage or overload, targets may resolve slower, not enough power, and it may stop functioning completely. If you lose a wing that included some of your heat sinks, for example, you might need to scale back your power usage so you don't overheat the other components still on your ship. You can imagine a million other ways this could and will work. We don't see a lot of this right now on the smaller single-person ships because if something like this happens right now, it's very hard to do much about it. If your power plant gets damaged, you can't repair it in these small ships while you're in flight. If that happens in a larger multi-crewed ship, you may actually be able to repair and or reroute it, and you will certainly be able to EVA and provide some sort of limited repair solutions down the line. Some damage, of course, will have to be repaired after docking somewhere. If you manage to survive after losing a wing in space, it will be possible to limp back home. Of course, you won't be able to repair that while you're out and about with a simple EVA unless you brought a lot of space duct tape with you. As Chris says, this system allows for a lot of emergent gameplay and a very organic system. One of the biggest issues people have complained about is the lack of responsiveness for certain movements of the ship. What's happening here is that the game realistically simulates what would have to happen if you had real thrusters on a ship in space. When you travel in one direction, there's no lift or drag. You don't slow down. you would just continue on that vector forever. The ship's IFCS, when it's on, interprets you setting your thrust direction back to 0 by physically rotating the thrusters to apply counter thrust to stop the ship's movement. This takes time. The ships do not have hilariously overpowered thrusters that can do this instantly, and in a lot of other games, it does happen instantly. Chris states that if you're used to an atmospheric model when flying, in this model, where momentum is much more important, it's very easy to overshoot your desired heading. Then because the counter thrust takes time, you may overcorrect. That's the cause of the twitchy feeling for most folks, and has caused a lot of people in the community to think that the flight model is just flat out wrong. Chris goes on to state that the goal for Star Citizen is to be controller agnostic. They don't want any one control scheme to have an advantage over another. One of the top priorities right now for Arena Commander is getting control customization built in ASAP. HOTAS profiles are coming too, as well as control filtering for joysticks to allow for crisper maneuvering during small stick movements. Headlook modes allowing joystick users to use the gimbaled weapon systems is also on the way. I gotta say that my personal word on this is, good luck with that endeavor, CIG. Many have tried to equalize the viability of inputs in the past, and no one has ever accomplished it, to my knowledge. Selfishly, I hope the joystick turns out to be the controller of choice if that's the case. Sorry, you filthy gamepad users. Chris also responds to the complaint of too much turreting. Turreting is basically sitting still or moving very slowly while just spinning your ship around in circles to shoot at people. It makes it really easy to stay on your target when the ships can rotate fairly quickly like they do. It's considered a bad thing typically and an impediment to a skill-based dogfighting system. Chris assures us that in the multiplayer testing, people that win or want to win do not do very much turreting. Sitting still or moving really slowly gets you very dead very quickly. I can attest to that myself from multiplayer testing that I've participated in. If you see someone turreting, jump them because they're going to die quick and you should be the one to get the points. Everyone always wants to do those BSG moves where you decouple and continue your forward momentum while spinning your ship around backwards to shoot your enemy. While this may be a tactic that's usable in some very rare situations, continuing on the same vector for very long will almost assuredly mean that you are going to die. In the time it takes you to turn around, that ship that was following you will have already destroyed you in these small fragile ships. Chris states that the best way to use decoupled mode is to make fast vector changes. Your most powerful thrust comes from your rear engines, so decoupling to rotate your ship at say a 90-degree angle and then turn the flight computer back on to apply your rear engine thrust is a very good way to make sharp turns. Hopefully your engines aren't so powerful though that you splatter your brains on the side window in the process. And one last little bit of info, Chris said about Arena Commander that all the weapons are currently gimbaled. This was just a temporary thing to keep the ships more evenly matched until the full systems are in. They will not all be gimbaled in the future. Fixed weapons will have a lead indicator, just like a real-life combat aircraft. We got an in-fiction post about the store-all manufacturer. This is for the traders in the verse. We've heard about the standardized cargo boxes that will be able to attach to ships like the Aurora, and this is the company that makes them. If you're new to the Star Citizen lore posts, they're in-fiction lore posts that actually represent what the intention for the system in the game will be like. Apparently Store-All is a fairly ghetto company with a ridiculous advertising commercial featuring something resembling a badger or some kind of furry crab, I'm not sure. The company has had many marketing related name changes and has also been known as Transgo, Stuff It, and even Shiploads. Yep, that's right, Shiploads. They appear to be Star Citizen's version of Saga, the publisher that tried to trademark the word candy. One Store-All attempted patent was for a cube-shaped cargo area for spaceflight purposes. Surprisingly, this in-fiction post about storage containers is one of the more interesting posts I've read in a while. There's a lot of hints toward ghost containers and the institutionalizing of container rentals instead of purchasing them. They don't usually write these things in these lore posts without some sort of plan for that idea in the future to come to reality, and that's what makes this one so interesting. I urge you to give this one a read. If you're new to this show, I always post links to all my sources and every single thing I talk about in the Show More Info section down below the video. Be sure to check that out. Patch 12.3 released for Arena Commander. This patch included a whole lot of bug fixes, including a couple of really important additions. A directional indicator for shield impacts was added for impacts that happen outside of your view, and countermeasures were made more effective. Those are both very needed considering the cramped space of the multiplayer combat zone right now. Another little tidbit about multiplayer is that it has surpassed 20,000 people admitted so far and is ahead of schedule. Good job, CIG. The Xi'an scout ship, the Cartu has appeared on the website for sale with new concept art and even a video. The Cartu is the light attack craft of the Xi'an military. The ship does not have a main thruster, but instead has an array of maneuvering thrusters on articulated rigs. The ship is extremely agile and bears the nickname the Quark because the ship looks like a spark flying through space. If you want to pick this ship up, you have to get on it soon because the limited sale of the ship ends on Friday the 27th of June. Check out the page on the site and you can also get a preview of the new Holo Viewer that will eventually be there for lots of stuff on the site. It's a really awesome way to inspect the ship, and later on when it includes all the details of the ship, it'll be a great informational tool. We also hit $47 million in crowdfunding, due in part to the huge spike from the Xi'an ship sales. With that, we unlocked the engine tuning kit. This kit will allow us to view our engine's output and energy draw, and then use the 38-piece tool set to tweak the setup. In the vote on whether CIG should continue stretch goals or not, 54% of citizens voted yes. That's extremely close, but we're doing it. Chris said he's going to honor that, but he doesn't want to give us empty rewards, so he's going to wait until they have something really new and great to give us. The second episode of Around the Verse, the new show from CIG, has dropped, and it's a much better presentation than the first episode. This week they got a desk, and that is a major improvement. We got an interview from Tony Zurovec, the new director of the Persistent Universe portion of Star Citizen. The full interview is on the official YouTube where you can learn about Tony's history in game development and the kind of stuff he's going to be working on in the Persistent Universe. David Hobbins, lead concept artist, also answers a few questions. When he was asked what his favorite spaceship design was, he referred to the Slave One, which is, of course, Boba Fett's ship from a film series called Star Wars. If you've never heard of Star Wars, you should take a look. It's a pretty good show. He also mentioned the Leonov from 2010 and the Discovery from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Another interesting mention goes to Doug Chiang, who worked as a concept artist for the 2005 War of the Worlds, as well as design director and supervisor for Star Wars Episode 1 and 2. Interestingly enough, I also own a graphic novel created by Doug Chiang and Orson Scott Card called Robota, and that is being turned into a feature film in which Doug is also creating. We also get to see a cool speed drawing session from David. Last but not least, we get to see a cool community interview with Steve Snyder. Steve was an Air Force pilot and now a captain for a fire department. This is a really interesting interview to listen to because it's awesome to see people from totally different walks of life getting involved in Star Citizen. This is the kind of guy I like having around the community. He also tells the absolute best story about how he got his co-worker to be his wingman in the game. I don't want to spoil it for you, so make sure you check it out on Around the Verse. This week on 10 for the Chairman, Chris responded to a few decent questions. Let's go over the important bits. When Chris was asked about organizations going to war, he said that it would typically be over things like space and asteroid stations, mining operations, and jump points. People have also been asking for an observer mode, and this week Chris confirmed that they are actively looking into adding a spectator mode in the game. Chris also mentioned having an auto spectator mode that would be able to spectate on its own while you stream to Twitch or something very similar. They'll also be keeping in mind ways to do this spectator mode without giving away specific information that a Twitch streamer may not want viewers to see. This is a really good addition if they go through with this. I stream full-time on Twitch, and Star Citizen will be my main streaming game when the Persistent Universe is out. Chris was also asked about Voice Attack, the program that allows you to speak commands and set in-game macros that fire on those commands. His response was that he thought it was very cool, and they're actually reaching out to the Voice Attack guys because he thinks it would be great to add in. And one final bit of info, would damage from a fight keep you from being able to land on a planet? Chris said that they've debated on this already, and he thinks that if you can get your ship into orbit, they would be able to get you down there somehow, although you may not be able to leave again until you get repairs. That's about all she wrote from 10 for the Chairman this week. Let's do some other news. In other news this week, the Steam Summer Sale is live, and if you're like me, you've already purchased many sub $5 games that you will never play. For the space fans out there, let me give you one or two titles to keep an eye on. FTL. If you've never played FTL, you're doing yourself a great disservice. FTL is a roguelite where you manage your ship and crew as you fly through space, fleeing from this faction. FTL will be back on sale for 75% or more by the end of the Steam sale, so keep watching. For less than $3, it's one of the best values of any game ever made. Planet Explorers is an open-world sandbox adventure, RPG, on an alien planet. It's voxel-based and includes things like digging, building, and crafting. The single-player mode of this game will get you about 20 or 30 hours of storyline, and it's pretty entertaining. So check it out when the prices drop. And one final bit of other news, Galactic Inquiry with Michael Moreland, creator of Wingman's Hangar, drops on the 27th. That's right, the first episode is going to come on Friday, and you'll be seeing me again this week on that show. Be sure to check it out. This week, the r/Star Citizen post of the week goes to the mighty Teaspoon for his post and website at starcitizendatapad.com. Teaspoon has created a website that is a ship and weapon database that also includes a file browser for encrypted game files. Be sure you check it out, it is too awesome. Thanks Teaspoon for hooking up the Star Citizen community. That wraps it up for another week of The Whole Truth. I look forward to seeing you all again on Friday in Galactic Inquiry. You can also look forward to some huge Patreon updates if you're a backer over there, in the way of better subscriber perks and special backer-only videos coming before the end of this month. Engines powering down. Goodbye.